Those of you who have had a chance to look at the program, we have got an awesome group of speakers. I don't know how it happened, but it did, and I'm so pleased. And our first speaker is Kevin Hines. How many people have seen the YouTube clip with Kevin Hines on it? If you haven't, it's worth seeing. You're going to see him in person. He's a great guy, and supported by his wife, who's here, making certain he behaves himself, which I think is a marvellous thing. Kevin's he's a survivor, and he'll talk about that. But he's also an author. He's been recognised with Lifetime Awards for his contribution to suicide prevention. And I love the title of his book, Cracked, Not Broken. Like a little motto, really, isn't it, for us all? We're all a bit cracked, but we're not broken. And Kevin is going to talk powerfully about what that means and what the gift of life means and why we should cherish it. So please give a great Australian welcome to Kevin Hines.
Thank you, John. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Can I help you? The only words that I desperately needed to hear, standing atop the Golden Gate Bridge walkway, crying hysterically, after walking around that bridge walkway for 40 minutes, crying hysterically, then leaning over that 4-foot-nothing rail, peering down to the depths of those looming waters below me, contemplating the end of my days, taking my life by my own hands. Right before I walked back toward the traffic railing, sprinted forward, and catapulted myself into free fall. I was shocked into reality at that moment. The millisecond my hands left that rail and my feet went over it, my only thoughts were these. What have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. And then I hit the water. A 220-foot drop, 25 stories, 2/3 of the Transamerica Pyramid building in the city I live in, San Francisco. I fell at 75 miles per hour, and when you hit that water at that velocity from that height, it is like hitting a solid. You can't see it if you are visibly looking at it. You can't tell, but you stop for less than a second, and a vacuum sucks you under the water extremely deep, 70 to 80 feet usually. And something very unexpected happened, as you can clearly tell by looking at me. I opened my eyes. I didn't die. I was wide awake, fully conscious, and I was drowning. And then I realized I couldn't feel my legs. Upon impact, I had shattered my T12, L1, and L2 lower vertebrae into shards like glass. I know some of you just ate, but they splintered throughout my insides, lacerating me internally. My legs were useless. They were immobile. My right arm was wrenched. The pain was excruciating. Moving it past here, I just wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I was underwater. I frantically moved in any direction. I was going down. My eyes were bulging. My ears were ringing. I realized my mistake. I turned position, and I shot for what I believed to be the surface within that murky water. Eventually, I saw a lit circle above me. I knew it was light. I knew I just had to make it. What you must understand at this point is that I never wanted to die by suicide. I never wanted to take my life. No, I believed I had to. I believed, before I went over that rail, that I was a burden to all who love me. I believed that I was useless, worth nothing on this planet. I self-loathed prior to. And what brought me to all of that was something psychologists call bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features. A mental illness, a brain disease. It's chronic. I had been diagnosed at 17. Upon the time I was at that bridge, I was 19 years of age. I'm adopted, but my biological parents before me had the very same brain disease that I just told you about. Except they coped with their disease with hardcore recreational drugs and alcohol. Matter of fact, they would leave my brother and I unattended in seedy crack motels with concrete slab floors, barely a box spring for a mattress, lying atop that box spring, barely clothed, sickly, lying in our own filth to go score drugs. That was the beginning of my life. But there I was on that bridge. There I did go over, and there I prayed in that water to stay alive. God, please save me. I don't want to die. God, please save me. I made a mistake. I bobbed up and down the water, and all I could do was pray. It was my only option. I looked to my right. There was a pillar. It had a ladder. It was 20 yards off. If I could just get to that pillar, someone's going to save me. I tried to move in that direction, but there are 6 currents underneath that bridge, that Golden Gate Bridge, moving in different directions. If you are not a triathlete swimmer, you're not going anywhere, and I wasn't. I looked to my left. There was a buoy, same amount of yards off. I tried to make it, not going to happen. And I thought to myself, I'm going to drown. I don't want to drown. Well, why'd you jump into a giant body of water? The most fear I have ever experienced occurred right then and there. And then something very alive brushed by my legs. Some of you have read about this story, but I'll tell you anyway. This thing brushed by my legs, went past me, came back, and then just began to circle beneath me. And I really thought, I'm going to get eaten by a frickin' shark. I didn't die off that bridge, and a shark's going to eat me. Preposterous. That wasn't the plan. I found out after being on a show a year later called Primetime Live with a man named John Quinones. He's the host of that international show, What Would You Do? Some of you may have seen it. And on that show, I explained that I thought there was this shark. And people wrote into the show from all over the world, Italy, Japan, everywhere. And one gentleman named Morgan, he wrote in. And he said something to the effect of, Kevin, I am so very glad you are alive. I was less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. Your jump has haunted me until this day. No one would tell me if you lived or died. Not the hospital, not the California Highway Patrol, not the ambulance, not the Coast Guard. He said, I'm so happy you're alive. And by the way, you mentioned you thought you saw a shark. You thought the shark was beneath you. And he said, it was no shark. It was a sea lion. And the people above looking down believed it to be keeping you afloat until that Coast Guard boat arrived behind you. That's just one part of the miracle that saved my life. This animal, this kind creature, keeping me afloat. Before that, when I went over the rail, a woman in a red car driving by at the point of my jumping over saw me jump, and she called her friend in the Coast Guard. The only reason they arrived to my position within less than the time I would set into hypothermia and die. She happened to be the best friend of my high school band teacher. That's the reason I know this story. Next to that, the Coast Guard, they dove in the water. They took me out of those frigid waters. They put me on a flatboard. They put me in a neck brace. They strapped me in. They cut off my upper body clothing, searching for any kind of hemorrhaging they could see. I was wide awake. I was fully conscious. I knew exactly what I had just done. I knew I'd made the greatest mistake of my life. And they said, "Kid, do you know what you just did?" I said, "Yes, I just jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge." They said, "Why? Why did you do that?" My only ridiculous, preposterous answer was this: "I don't know. I thought I had to die." I thought wrong. You see, when I went to that bridge, I believed that my family hated me. I believed that they wanted me dead. I believe they were pretending to love me because of my brain. What must be understood is that the brain is the single most powerful organ in your body, affecting every action and inaction you take or do not, affecting every aspect of your life, every movement you make. It controls it all. It's on mostly automatic mode. When you wake up in the morning and you take a shower, that's not you telling yourself to take a shower. You did that the first time you took a shower and made that routine, and your brain logged it and said, "Do that again." And if the brain is the single most powerful organ in our body, why do we treat it as if it is separate from our health? There should be no such thing as mental health separated from physical health. It's all just health. And in this country, Australia, and in America, and around the world, we need to treat it as such. We need to change that paradigm around the world so that we can affect change in suicide prevention all over this globe. So those Coast Guard, those beautiful men, they saved me from those waters. And they brought me to an ambulance. In that ambulance, I had an asthma attack. I've had exercise-induced asthma my entire life. Some people who've been with me here in Australia know you'll see me puffing on my inhaler. You bet that was exercise in those waters. They couldn't give me my asthma medication that I had put in my left pocket, as if preparing for not to die in that irrational thought of suicidal ideation. They could only administer oxygen. I was exasperated. It was terrifying. They got me to the hospital. They whipped me through these white-walled hallways. It was like organized chaos. Doctors, nurses, orderlies, everywhere. They got me into the code room. I had 2 IVs, one in both arms. I had tubes coming out of seemingly everywhere. I was mangled, broken, bruised, but I was alive. The doctor that performed my back surgery, that has given me the ability to stand before you today, that doctor wasn't supposed to be there at that hospital at that day, at that time. He was supposed to have left the day before for another assignment. He stayed for whatever reason. When I came in, he opted to do my back surgery. 14 hours later, he replaced my 3 vertebrae with titanium. A cylindrical cage went where they were. He took out those splintered pieces of vertebrae, and as doctors do, he meshed them into a paste, I imagine, just like this, because that's what doctors do. And he put that meshed vertebrae into that cylindrical cage, and they were to be fused. 4 pins next to it, a metal plate to my side about the size of my palm. Heck, I can skip if I want to. I was given the gift of a second chance at life, given the gift of hope, a future. And then my father came in. My father, Patrick Kevin Hines, as I am John Kevin Hines. My father came in, and let me tell you a little bit about Pat Hines. Pat Hines is what they call in San Francisco an old Sunset Irishman. tough as nails. He's the kind of guy that had nothing and built it into something. He's the kind of guy whose parents were alcoholics and died of liver disease at very young ages. He's the kind of guy that when he was 7 years of age, all he was doing in his childhood was traveling around in the middle of the night, searching every bar in the city to find mom or dad, and most likely he would not. And he would have to travel home at 3, 4 in the morning, tuck his little sister into bed. And then when and if mom and dad came home, he held mom's hair in the bathroom while she was sick. And then his father persisted to aim for my father's face with his fist. That was his life. And all he ever wanted to do was build a family that he could love and take care of and give the gift of a future. And he and Deborah Hines, they could have had their own children, but they chose not to. They chose to adopt 3 kids from 3 separate families and give them existence they could have never imagined. Privileged existence. And that's what they did. And he walked into my hospital room that day on September 25th of the year 2000, and he stepped in with one foot, and my father, that old Sunset Irishman who I had never seen cry in my entire 19 years of being alive until that point, I thought he had no tear ducts, and he walked into that room, he took one look to his left, and he looked at me, and I looked up at my father, and I said, I'm sorry, and he said, no, Kevin, I'm sorry. Guilt is what he felt, guilt that he did not deserve, that he should never have harbored, that doesn't belong to him, it doesn't belong to anyone who loves someone who dies by suicide. And this man who I had never seen cry, waterfalls poured from his face. He came over to my left side, he put his hand on my forehead, and he said, Kevin, you're going to be okay, I promise. Words and a promise he could not keep. They had given me a 50-50 chance of living through the night. But words that I grasped, that I held close and dear, and that I never let go. Words that gave me the strength to fight every day through the pneumonia, which almost killed me, through the back surgery, through going from wheelchair to walker and a back brace and a cane, to walking like I am today. It wasn't easy. I didn't just recover and everything was peaches and cream from there. No. Apparently, when you jump off a bridge, you have to go into a psych ward. Wasn't aware of that. I found out quick. When they got me out of the physical hospital, I went straight into that psychiatric hospital. Now that was fear, let me tell you. They're not the easiest things to do. I've been 7 in less than 9 years up till 2011, 7 psych wards. But in that first psych ward stay, I'll never forget a man named John. John was in the white-walled padded room with a straitjacket on, bouncing around the walls, and every day you could hear him scream, where is my wife? What have you done with my kids? And where is my dog? And every day John would eventually calm down, and they'd bring John outside. He'd sit down on a bench, and he would say, where is my wife? What have you done with my kids? And where is my dog? And they would tell him every single day, over and over and over again, John, your wife left you. She took the kids, and your dog has passed away. And that's what he relived on a daily basis. And he was in that white-walled padded room with a straitjacket after straitjackets were outlawed in California. I know, I've been in one. But I learned a lot in that psych ward. I learned how to take care of myself mentally. I learned that I had people that cared about me and loved me. And I learned that I had to take responsibility for my mental illness, and I had to fight it tooth and nail. Yeah, I learned that for about a year. And I was on the medication that actually worked at one point. It doesn't work for everyone. I found that it worked for me at some point. And one day I said to myself, well, I'm pretty much cured now. Guess I'll go off those meds or binge drink until blackout while I'm on them, something that could have killed me. Right back in another psych ward in 2002. And then out, and then back in, and then out, and then back in. At my third psych ward stay, 2 uncles had a huge part in changing my life. My great uncle, Kevin Ryan, a Teamster in San Francisco. a more old Sunset San Franciscan Irishman. He came into the hospital every day. He came in with a cup of soup, a comic book, I collected them, and he came in with some conversation. But the most important thing he came in with was empathy. The empathy he held for me, it saved my life. The second uncle, Uncle George on my mom's side, came in. He said, Kevin, listen, we can help you until we're blue in the face, but until you decide to help yourself on a regular basis and change your life, nothing will pass. This will stay the same, and you will be cycling through the psych wards for the rest of your life. I had an epiphany. Something else happened in that third psych ward stay. A young man came in. He was catatonic. He was addicted to drugs. He was having a relapse. He came in a gurney. And in that hospital, you have to understand that if you're not helping yourself in that hospital, the doctors and the nurses, they don't really have time for you. And he couldn't help himself. He couldn't even talk. And so every day I made it a point to talk to him morning, noon, and night, because I was going to get him to say something. And he was a really good listener. And one fateful day, he started moving, and he looked up at me, and he goes, Jesus, man, you talk too much. Because I know your whole life story. Twice. Give it a rest. Give me a break. Well, he had a very devoted family that came in to see him. About 22 of them every day. You should have seen him in the waiting room. The waiting room is about this size. It's about the size of that elevator. There they are, packed in there, coming in 2 at a time. And at this point, you see, I had finagled the nursing staff into allowing me to volunteer for the hospital I stayed in. That's illegal, but I did it. And they had me clean out the giveaway clothes closet. We're all wearing hospital gowns, hospital pants, and hospital slippers. And what am I wearing? A Ralph Lauren polo suit I found in the giveaway clothes closet, like I own the place. A Ralph Lauren polo shirt that I found. It must have been some guy who liked Ralph Lauren. Anyway, and so there I was, and I'm standing there in this polo, and I got my clipboard that's got just a bunch of doodles on it, and I'm making the morning announcements, and here comes the visiting hours, and a woman taps me on my left shoulder. Happened to be his cousin, the guy I was helping. She taps me on my left shoulder. I turned around, and that was it. I was done. I said to myself, that's going to be my wife. I didn't tell her. That would have been weird. And she looked at me. She said, excuse me, do you work here? And there are all the nursing staff at the nursing desk, and they're looking at me like, what is this jackass going to say? And I turned to her, and I said, as a matter of fact, miss, I am a volunteer. That wasn't a lie. They couldn't do anything about it. And she said, I'm looking for my cousin. His name is. I said, madam, right this way. I walked her to his room. The problem was he saw me, and we weren't friends yet. And so she said to him, she said, your nursing staff is so nice. And he goes, that guy? That guy's a nutball. That guy jumped off a bridge. Don't talk to that guy. And her response, as she'd never been in a place like this, was, they let them run loose around here? He could have killed me. And she is now my wife. Besides the gift of a second chance at life, she is my greatest gift and my biggest advocate and gets me through every painful day. What must be understood is that I have all of my symptoms that I have today. When I didn't tell you about them, let me explain them. Paranoid delusions, extreme paranoid delusions, delusions of grandeur and manic highs, episodes of mania, manic highs caused by euphoric brain chemistry and not by recreational drugs, misfiring of synapses and neurons in your brain, and the deepest, darkest depressions you can imagine. Places where I'm dug into a hole so deep I can't dig myself out. Places where I end up having extreme thoughts of suicide. I have chronic suicidal thoughts. But I pledge to you, in every speech I ever do, this is the truth, I will never die by my own hands. Never. It will not happen. Because I deserve to be here. And, I'm kind of a good guy. We all are good folks. and we all deserve to be here. And if you or anybody you know in this field, your field, suffers mentally, if they're in emotional, extreme pain, and you see that, you visibly can see that pain on their faces, no longer can we choose to walk by that person, say nothing, or turn a blind eye. If we are not our brothers and sisters' keepers on this planet, we are nothing else but. You all are a gift to this planet, and so are your friends, so are your family, so are your acquaintances. You see someone like that, sitting in a chair, sitting in the corner somewhere, and they're in emotional, mental pain, walk up to them, look them in the eyes, and say these words, "Are you okay? Is something wrong? Or can I help you?" You don't know what that could do for someone. You could be saving their life. There was a man who went to the Golden Gate Bridge years ago in his 40s. He had a note in his notebook. He wrote in that note, if one person smiles at me, I will not jump. I will smile at everyone I see. He is dead. Are we a callous society such that we are so apathetic to the hurt of others that we walk by them? I think not anymore. I think all of you can change that. Some of you are doing it right now, and I'm appreciative. I can never take this life for granted. I will never take this life for granted again, as I used to. I will not take one person in my existence for granted, not the people I meet today, not the people in my family, and not the people I barely know on the street that I walk up to. I mean, look at this beautiful carpet, you know? Appreciate this carpet. Somebody had to put it here. We're only here but for the people before us. Did we invent the internet? No. Well, maybe someone did. I don't know. I didn't invent the internet. That helps us do the work we do. I know you guys built all the buildings, but I didn't. I didn't do that. The buildings I get to go in and be a part of the process to help people. We are here but for the people before us. Remember that. And today is not tomorrow. If you're suffering today, it doesn't mean you will suffer always. Every waking moment we have on this planet, no matter how painful it may be at some point, is a blessing. And you don't have to have a faith in God to know that. It's a blessing. If you get the privilege of waking up tomorrow, it's a great day. I remember in the hospital, one of my favorite days was when they had me get up and use the walker for the first time. And here I was in this walker, and I was determined. I'm going to walk today. Today's the day. And I remember my leg just wouldn't go past here. I couldn't break it. And the doctor's like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this today. You can take your time. I said, it's been long enough. I need to do this. And my family's there, and they're cheering me on, but they're also very worried that it's not going to happen, and I'm going to be so down and depressed, it's just going to put me in a worse place. And then I just fought it, and I went like that. And that was an epic success right there. And I say that to say this. It doesn't matter how monetarily successful you become in your life. All that stuff's irrelevant. What matters is how you treat the people in front of you. You know, I had a conversation the other day with someone in the construction business. I don't think he's here today, but he told me that, you know, in his line of work and his company, not this company, but I'm just going to talk about it. He said in his line of work, oftentimes there will be a group of guys, maybe a group of 6 guys and girls that constantly go to work and they pick on this guy over here. They pick on him and they rub him the wrong way and they use him as the butt of all their jokes. And you better believe that guy over there doesn't like that stuff. It doesn't make him feel good. It makes him feel less than. And I'm trying to explain something here. And that is this, that if you go to work every day, you don't have to like everyone you work with. You don't have to be their friend. But what you must do is recognize that that individual, no matter how tough the exterior, has feelings, emotional value, and can be hurt by words. When I was a kid, I was a tiny kid, and I was brown, and all the kids at my school were white. And that was a problem for them. I'm a very mixed race, and I would go to school, and they would call me names that I cannot repeat here. And the older ones would grab me by the head, and it was like one of those cartoons where I'm swinging like this, and I can't get the guy. And then the other guys would come up behind me, like this, behind my arms, and then this guy in front of me would pummel me all day. And that was how they treated me, because I didn't look like them. Think about that. Think about how that changed my psyche over the course of my life and led to a part of my depression. So like I said, you don't have to like the guys next to you, but respect that they have feelings. I hope that someday Australia, America, the globe finds a way to significantly reduce the number of suicides in all walks of life, in all organizations, conglomerates, businesses. America last year had $44 billion lost in productivity because of people going home from mental crisis. And Australia are not that far off from that number. We can change this. We can build a groundswell to change the world. That's why we're here today, to start those conversations, to move those mountains. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I'll never take anything for granted again, and I mean that. And I want to express to you a quote that I know very deeply and internally, something that means the world to me, something that gets me going every single day and keeps me sane when I am not. And it's from a man named Babatunde Olatunji. And Babatunde Olatunji most famously said these next words. He said, "Yesterday is history." He said, "Tomorrow is a mystery." He said, "Today is a gift." That is why they call it the present. I look to you now. I say, change the world. And I say, let us always and forever cherish today and every waking, blessed moment of our lives. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate your time. It means the world to me. Thank you very much.